soul going crazy.
Well, happy Monday morning, everybody. I know a lot of you guys are starting your work week today. I hope you guys enjoyed some football this weekend. We had a lot of good college games. Prime time goes 2-0. The Gators pick up a win against Tennessee, some of the big games I watched. And then, of course, a lot of action yesterday I kind of want to talk about this morning. The first one I want to talk about is the Seahawks and the Lions. First of all, I mean, the Detroit was rolling coming into that game. I really give credit to Seattle for coming in and being able to win that game. When you go on the road and beat Kansas City, you got some momentum on your side. First home game. It was just a heck of a win. My rule is, and even if I bet on a game or just how great some of these coaches are, if your team gets embarrassed the following week, they're going to respond that next week, which the Seahawks did. They got embarrassed by the Rams at home. Pete Carroll had his guys ready to go. That's one thing Seattle has done really well over the years is even if they got to travel a couple time zones, they usually play pretty well. It was just such a typical Seattle Seahawks kind of football game. A lot of, getting the speedsters of the receivers out in space. Tyler Lockett had a huge game. 8 reception, 59 yards, but 2 key touchdowns. DK had 75 yards. A huge thing, too, is they turned over the Lions. That's something not a lot of people have been doing the last year. Even Jared Goff, he got an interception. He hasn't thrown an interception in like 8 to 10 games, I believe, something crazy like that. One thing, you got to critique a little bit is that Geno Smith sack on third down. That kind of put him in bad field position there. But overall, I was really impressed with the Seahawks. Really thought they went in there and took care of business. So I took the points in that game, but really think Seattle gets back on track next week. Now I want to talk about the Jaguars and Chiefs. Got a lot to break down on this one. First of all, man, did the Jaguars defense show up to play. 17 points against Patrick Mahomes. If you ask any franchise in the NFL, if you give up 17 points, you're feeling pretty good about your defense against the best quarterback easily in the league. The offense was just horrendous. That was, quite frankly, embarrassing by the Jaguars. They had no rhythm whatsoever. Didn't really, in my opinion, put any pressure on the Kansas City defense much. They really played it pretty safe with the screens. They ran a lot of screens. Tried a lot of crazy stuff with plays, and they had a receiver throwing it one of the times. I didn't really love the play calling for the Jaguars. I think with this team, they're a little different than last year. You're going to have to take shots. You're going to have to try to get Calvin Ridley the ball deeper down the field. And they just did not take enough deep shots. I will say the right tackle, Anton Harrison, really struggled against Chris Jones as expected. So that was a huge part of it. Trevor seemed to be really upset about just not having time in the pocket really at all to deliver like he usually does. So it's going to be interesting. Sheriff went down last week, so the offensive line, I think, has really been the biggest struggle so far for the Jaguars. A couple key points I really saw in the game. I think the going for it in the end of the first half on 4th and 5 at the 45. Huge call for Doug Peterson. I think a lot of people were wanting a punt there. It just didn't work out, and then that led to Kansas City going down the field and scoring. With how their defense was playing, you could really argue that you punt the ball and just see if Mahomes can go 98 yards in a minute 30, which we know he's capable of, but definitely did not help the defense out field position-wise there. The Jaguars were unsuccessful on 3 touchdown attempts. Zay Jones, Kirk, and Calvin Ridley could not get the feet down. Really disappointing. You could tell that Trevor was really frustrated in this game. You could tell that he was getting upset he wasn't having time to throw, and he was getting hit. He got hit. Trevor got hit, and credit to the Chiefs, the offense was quite embarrassing this week in Jacksonville. Really, all the talk has been about in Jax is, can the defense keep up? I haven't seen the offense play well in 2 weeks of football, in my opinion, to be quite frank. Besides that opening half with Calvin Ridley having dang near 100 yards receiving, I think the Jags have not played great football. Week one they got a win, but that was a limited Anthony Richardson. Their defense was keeping everything in front of them. He's so raw and athletic. Just kept everything simple and ended up winning that game. But don't think the Colts are going to be very good this year. But the Jags need to bring it next week. Houston's going to come into Jacksonville 0-2, hungry. They've beaten Jacksonville the last 2 years here in Jax, so it's Jags are 1-1. It could be worse. They could be 0-2, but I think they're really going to need to bring it next week. That they have not put a well offensive game yet this season, so we'll see how Doug Peterson gets them going. Doug is not calling the plays anymore. We'll see what happens there if they continue to struggle. I think that's kind of a question you could kind of look into is Press Taylor over his head, and does Doug come back and say, I was doing well last year. I'm going to continue to call the plays and take over. Key thing. I kind of look forward with the Jaguars. We'll see what happens next week where they go back to the bank against the Texans. Another game I want to talk to you guys about before we head out is the Bucks and Bears. Man, Justin Fields, it's not looking good for him. He looks so uncomfortable in the pocket. He's got great weapons. DJ Moore, all these guys, and it's not like they played very good teams. I mean, the Bucks and the Packers, say what you want, but Baker is a C quarterback. Jordan Love really trying to figure everything out. I think Justin Fields is in big trouble. I mean, who do you go to blame? Do you blame the OC? Do you blame Eberflus? It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Bears. There's so many good quarterbacks coming out. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, Bo Nix. So many good guys. Jordan Travis from Florida State. There's 4 to 5 quarterbacks where you could really see be taken over in Chicago. I mean, they have so many picks too. So from the Panthers, so they're going to be up there to select one of these guys. So I think Justin Fields is clearly, his pocket awareness is really slacking. I don't think he's got the greatest coaching system around him. That's why I think it's so key with these younger quarterbacks to have a really good offensive coach, because you deal with so much learning between college and the NFL with these young quarterbacks. You really need someone that you can relate to. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Bears. I mean, I think by Thanksgiving they're going to have a decision within the building, like, we're going to move off him, and he's only won 5 games as a starter. Say what you want, but in his third year, it's not looking too hot for Justin Fields from what I've seen in the first 2 games out there. Some key takeaways I want to bring you guys before I head out. Bengals dropped to 0-2. Are they in trouble? Does Joe Burrow look hurt still? Got his big payday, as we all know. So it's going to be interesting to kind of keep in track what happens there with the Bengals. Lost at home against the Ravens this weekend. Is Russell Wilson's best days over? It sure has been looking like it in the second half for the Broncos. That's where you kind of separate the men and the boys at quarterback. All the script plays and all that is really meant for the first half, but you got to make conversions in the second half to win ball games that you see with all these quarterbacks. So does Russell Wilson look done? He's definitely not moving around like he used to. Looks like trouble in Denver for the Broncos. Another thing I want to talk about is the Chargers. Coach Brandon Staley lost 2 games in a row. That's going to be an interesting kind of thing to look at. Definitely, in my opinion, they chose Brandon Staley, the cheaper side, instead of Brian Dable. as a coach. So we're gonna be watching. I'm gonna be watching how they come out next week. They should have lost both games, and you can say I think Brandon Staley got outcoached in both games against Tennessee and the Dolphins. One last thing, I think the Dolphins have been such an amazing start to the season. Their coach Mike McDaniel has that offense humming. Vic Fangio is a great defensive coordinator, so I expect big things from the Dolphins this year. So Tua's looked really good. They can stay healthy. That's the key. Well, anyways, guys, I just wanted to kind of talk a little breakdown. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Kind of give you guys my thoughts on a couple games this week, and we will. Thanks for supporting. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys real soon. Thanks so much.